Hello and welcome back to the Reset series, episode 8. We are going to be looking through President Ojeda's second term throughout this video. Instead of breaking it up by year, we're just going to do it. We're going to do the term video, then we're going to do the midterm video, then we're going to do the candidates for the primaries, then we're going to do the primary video, and then we're going to do the general election. So let's get started. President Ojeda is inaugurated for a second term after winning an historic landslide, first never before seen since the biggest landslide since Reagan in 1980, biggest landslide since then, bigger than his previous landslide victory back when he was first elected 4 years ago. Ojeda has been inaugurated for a second term. And here's President Ojeda's approval rating. He has a 4% disapproval rating across the country, with GOP support being at 54% disapproval amongst the Republicans, the 6% support among Democrats, and a 38% approval rating amongst third-party and independent voters. Here's President Ojeda's cabinet at the beginning of his term. We have Secretary of State Jane Hartley, Secretary of the Treasury Lee Zeldin, Secretary of Defense James McConville, Attorney General Bob McDonnell, Secretary of the Interior Bob Good, Secretary of Agriculture Joe Maxwell, Secretary of Commerce Gregory Meeks, Secretary of Labor Susan Wild, Secretary of Health and Human Services Tom Price, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Sean Donovan, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Energy Kathleen Hicks, Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, Secretary of Veterans Affairs Shri Thandar, Secretary of Homeland Security Michael Shigaris, Secretary of the Budget Jerome Bell, Secretary of Small Business Eddie Dempsey, the White House Chief of Staff Crystal Ball, the White House Press Secretary Robert Work, the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Phil Scott, the Science and Tech Advisor to the President Andrew Yang, the Chair of the Economic Council Todd Rutherford, the EPA Administrator Mary Neumayer, the Trade Representative Evangelo Carvalho, the CIA Director John Sullivan, and the National Intelligence Director Jared Golden. Supreme Court Justice Bill Cole has sadly passed away at the age of 73. This will be another Supreme Court nomination that Richard Ojeda will have to go through. Ojeda just had a very lucky timing, it seems like. And President Ojeda has announced that he will nominate New Jersey Governor Doug Steinhardt, a conservative. However, he's considered conservative despite the fact that all of his nominations have been pretty moderate, despite, their conservative leaning. But he has been selected as the new justice to replace Bill Cole on the court. Doug Steinhardt will be resigning from the governorship as soon as he is confirmed. President Ojeda has vetoed the Separate but Equal Act, which, if you don't remember, there were protests wanting there were separatist protests wanting minorities to be separated from whites. While whites don't get funding, the minorities are supposed to get funding. So to fight poverty and all that. And Ojeda has vetoed it, saying that it's segregation, plain and simple. And of course, protests broke out from the White House because of it, especially protesters from D.C. Congress has overridden the veto of the Separate but Equal Act, so it will pass into law without the signature. It was a pretty wild, Rockefeller Republicans as well as progressives and moderate Democrats all came together to override this veto. And there you go. The Blue Dog Democrats, the moderate Republicans, and right-wing Republicans have all, voted against this. However, it wasn't enough to keep it from being overridden. Steinhardt has been confirmed for his Supreme Court position. He will resign from the governorship immediately and will take his position on the court. We now have the 2029 elections results right here. For the Virginia governor race, a Democrat flip from independent Hala Hayala will defeat former Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears to flip the seat blue. This was a rematch from their 2021 race 8 years ago. In the New Jersey governor race, Lieutenant Governor, now Governor Jack Ciattarelli, who succeeded from being Lieutenant Governor to Governor after Doug Steinhardt resigned to become the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. He has been elected to his first full term, defeating Ross Baraka. And in New York City, Fernando Mateo has won re-election, defeating Sean Donovan, who resigned from his housing position to run for mayor. However, he was unsuccessful. He even had Ojeda's endorsement. However, Ojeda's endorsement failed him this time. Former Congressman Doug Collins has been appointed to become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs. He was a former Navy. He was a part of the Navy, or scratch that, he was a Marine, excuse me. He's a Marine now, being appointed to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs by President Ojeda, who was part of the Navy. Here is President Ojeda's approval rating in 2030, beginning of 2030. As you can see here, he has a 30% disapproval rating amongst the Republican Party, a 22% disapproval rating amongst the Democrats. This is mostly due to him vetoing the Separate but Equal Act, and a 2% disapproval rating among third-party and independent voters, giving him a total of an 18% disapproval rating across the country. President Ojeda has raised the alcohol tax by 2%. He said this is to, lower the national debt, as well as to pay off, different levels of government programs he is wanting to implement. This was part of his budget, his 2030 budget, that got passed not that long ago. Riots have erupted in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, due to the high alcohol prices. Alcohol prices have skyrocketed about 5% due to this 2% alcohol tax. And of course, President Ojeda has sent in the National Guard to quell the Allegheny riot, which has not made him popular amongst Republicans, these are what mostly these people are, Republicans rioting over this. However, independents and Democrats are favoring him a lot more now. There is U.S. victory at Kabul into the Second Afghanistan War is apparently drawing near, according to U.S. admirals or U.S. generals in Afghanistan currently. We have been in this war since 2021 after the botched Afghanistan trial during the Biden administration, and now we could be very well seeing an end to this war in the Ojeda administration. Here's President Ojeda's approval rating in the beginning of 2031. He has a 26% disapproval rating amongst Republicans, an 18% disapproval rating amongst Democrats, and a 12% approval rating amongst third-party and independent voters, giving him a 10% disapproval rating across the country. President Ojeda has signed the Non-Citizen Amnesty Act, which gives amnesty to all the illegal immigrants currently in this country, and they are now full citizens in this country. Ojeda signed amnesty, something he, rallied had in his second term agenda that he wanted to do, and he has finally done this with broad Democrat support. President Ojeda has signed the Equal Rights Amendment decades after it was ratified by 3/4 of the states. He has finally signed it. It has become the 28th Amendment. Equal pay for women now. The Second Afghanistan War has ended in U.S. victory. There is now a democratic nation in Afghanistan. The Taliban no longer rules. The Taliban leaders have been executed. They have been dealt with by U.S. military operatives, and the U.S. can now withdraw peacefully without there being any sort of, government overthrowing. We have the results for the 2031 elections. As you can see here, Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman, who served 2 non-consecutive terms with Andy Beshear, has won her place as the governor of Kentucky, keeping this seat blue. In the Mississippi governor race, Thomas Duff will go on to win re-election here. In the Louisiana governor race, LaToya Cantrell will go on to win re-election here. Justice Alina Kagan, the last liberal justice of the Supreme Court, has passed away at age 73. Our thoughts and prayers go out to her family, but she has passed away, sadly. President Ojeda has named Josh Abramson for the Supreme Court position currently. Another moderate, another conservative-leaning moderate. However, as you can see here, he's pro-LGBT, conservative. But of course, a lot of Democrats are getting behind a lot of this guy, and some Republicans are starting to back off. However, he is expected to gain the 50 votes, the actually 52 votes necessary to, or 53 votes necessary to be confirmed. Here's President Ojeda's approval rating in the beginning of 2032. As you can see here, has a 38% disapproval rating amongst the Republicans, 18% approval rating amongst Democrats, and a 12% approval rating amongst third-party and independent voters. And as you can see here, he has a 2% disapproval rating across the country. You know, that's pretty high considering he's been in the low 20s, early 30s most of his presidency. Brett Kavanaugh to resign from the Supreme Court. Brett Kavanaugh resigning from the Supreme Court due to old age. He's saying it's time for him to go. He's ready to retire now, and President Ojeda is expected to make yet another addition to the Supreme Court. Senator Dan Carter of Kentucky has been named to join the Supreme Court as an Associate Justice. He will be headed for a hearing, and in a tough confirmation battle, another moderate to join the Supreme Court. Ojeda did say he hoped to add more moderates to the Supreme Court to make it less political, and that's something he has clearly been doing, as he has a pretty high approval rating when it comes to his appointees. A low 72% approval rating from the nation. President Ojeda has made history yet again, signing his third state into law, adding a third state to the Union, This time, Guam has been added to the United States. Guam has become another state in the United States of America, adding another star to that flag, the 53rd star, the 53rd state. Here's President Ojeda's cabinet at the end of his term. Secretary of State is James McConville. Secretary of the Treasury is Lee Zeldin. Secretary of Defense is Joseph Bartlett. Attorney General is Jerry Papert. Secretary of the Interior is Bob Good. Secretary of Agriculture is Joe Maxwell. Secretary of Commerce is Mark Ellebrack. Secretary of Labor is Susan Wild. Secretary of Health is Andre Barnett. Secretary of Housing is Jake Auchincloss. Secretary of Transportation is Pete Buttigieg. Secretary of Energy is Kathleen Hicks. Secretary of Education is Tim Bess. Secretary of Veterans Affairs is Shri Thandar. Secretary of Homeland Security is Michael Shigaris. Secretary of the Budget is Jerome Bell. Secretary of Small Business is Crystal Ball. The White House Chief of Staff is Chris Sununu. And the White House Press Secretary is Madeleine Westerhout. The UN Ambassador is Phil Scott. The Science Tech Advisor is Andrew Yang. The Chairman of the Economic Council is Todd Rutherford. The EPA Administrator is Mary Neumayer. The Trade Representative is Evandro Carvalho. The CIA Director is John Sullivan, and the National Intelligence Director is Jared Golden. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to go follow my Twitter @ChaoticPolitics. This is the Chaotic One saying peace.